Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're talking about Marine Mat. Marine Mat, if you're not familiar with it, it is the OEM preferred provider for non-skid. That's for Yamaha, but really for most OEMs today, Marine Mat is the standard. Once upon a time it was other brands, but today Marine Mat's kind of got the territory. We opted for Marine Mat for a lot of reasons. Mainly we wanted to match what's on the boat from the factory. Super high quality stuff, gives you a non-skid texture. Not going to slip and fall on a wet surface. Beautiful, all kinds of patterns and things like that. Anyway, today we're going to talk about how to install that on your boat. Specifically, we're installing today on the Yamaha 25-foot FSH, but Marine Mat is obviously useful on any kind of boat regardless of what you have. And this install procedure will apply to you. So if you follow these steps, you can do it yourself. It's not that hard. Just kind of follow along with us and we'll make sure you're able to install your Marine Mat like a pro. Today I'm going to have my friend Jason installing with us. Jason does this for a living. He installs professionally. So when he does it, it's done right. It's going to stick. It's not going to come up. So we're going to use a lot of his tips and techniques today. I want to show you some of the things you're going to need to get started doing your install. First off, if you have snap down carpets in your boat, you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver to pull those snaps out. You're also going to need some kind of filler, so maybe a 3M4200 filler. You can fill the holes. Give that about 24 hours cure time if you can. After you've put that in, you're going to need some sort of razor blade, so a typical X-Acto like this is fine. Or, I'll put a link in the description below if you want to buy one of the little slice tools. We use these because there's very little chance of you damaging the mat, but you can split the paper easily and quickly. Also, you're going to need some Primer 94. We use this to give additional bond strength around the perimeter so there's no water intrusion. You can get that off Amazon. Put that link in the description below as well. Finally, acetone and a good clean towel. Terry cloth if you can get it. Something like this. If you got a white, it's best. This is actually a microfiber, so microfiber, that's okay too. Acetone we like. You can also use Windex, something that's like a cleaner that has ammonia in it, but we like acetone because it evaporates quickly. So we don't have to wait for it to dry, that sort of thing. Do this install if you can in the shade. We'd recommend you do it in temperatures above 60 degrees Fahrenheit so that it has a good chance of sticking and bonding with the hull. With that said, let's go ahead and jump right in here. We're going to start from the back of the boat. This is a full install today. We're going to work our way from the back to the front. Let's get started. It's important to note on brand new boats like this 2024, these boats come out of the mold with a mold release compound. That means there's a waxy substance that is still on top of all of the surfaces, and your new Marine Mats will not stick well to this mold release compound. During this preparation step, using the acetone, you're going to want to be very, very liberal with the application. And one thing we like to do when we're done with the application is we like to use the finger squeak test. That means you take your finger, which is clean, free of oils, and look for that squeaking noise. When you hear the squeak, you know you've got the mold release compound off. Each Marine Mat kit from JetBoatPilot comes with a parts diagram that shows you where each pad goes. Although you don't see them on these pads, your pads will include a sticker and a corresponding part number that matches the parts diagram. When you're doing each zone of your boat, it's good to do a pre-layout to make sure all of the pads are included. Make sure you're not missing any pads. And from there, you can begin installing them one by one. Score the paper down the center of each pad and fold back approximately 2 inches of paper away from that score line. That exposes an adhesive strip down the center of the pad. Once you flip the pad over, you now have an exposed portion of your adhesive that will help you with aligning and prepping for installation. Each of your pads are designed to go outside of the factory non-skid by roughly 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch on most boat models. Make sure you orient your pad so that each of the edges, it protrudes outside of the factory non-skid. Prior to pressing that adhesive down, just get your location just where you want it. And when you have it exactly where you want it, lightly tack that center exposed adhesive strip. If you need to make a correction, you can easily remove the pad and readjust. It's also important to note that most seams we try to allow for about 1/4 of an inch gap between pads. So make sure that those joints or seams are aligned properly and roughly 1/4 of an inch in separation. Peel the edge of the pad back from one side and remove the paper. Not removing all of the paper. What we're going to do now is we're going to stroke the pad and try to remove the air as we stroke it. Be cautious not to stretch the pad If it's hot outside, it will stretch if your temperatures are high. So just try to maintain your geometry, not stretching, but squeegeeing the air out. If you find that you trap any air beneath, you can pop the air bubble with a push pin or X-Acto blade. Also, once you're done installing your pad, make sure you press your edges firmly. Some will walk on these edges with socks or bare feet. Just make sure your feet are clean if you do. Use your fingertips or even a roller you can buy from your home improvement store. This is important to ensure you do not have water intrusion beneath the pad, which ultimately could cause pad failure. On this particular pad, it's not important to notate the teak line orientation. However, on pads that are aligning with another pad, either before or after that pad, teak line alignment is important. For Marine Mat kits that are cut with a teak style, it is really important to make sure that your teak lines orient from part to part. So if you have one before and one after, you want to make sure those lines line up. Be careful not to attach or adhere your pads prior to stepping back and making sure your alignment is dead on, and then you can press and move on with your installation. Here's a pro tip for you. If you have a laser level, and if you're really particular, you can align your laser level so that both upper deck and lower deck pads in this shot will align for laser precision. If you have opted to use Primer 94 on your install, for instance, if your boat has non-skid that protrudes out to the edge of the flooring or to the panel, Primer 94 is highly recommended. In situations like this install where we have lots of exposed gel coat without the textured non-skid out around the perimeter, we don't really need to use Primer 94 in this particular application. However, to demonstrate how to use Primer 94 properly, follow these steps. Using a small brush, paint on Primer 94 around the perimeter, making roughly 1 to 2 inch stripe around that textured non-skid area, and allow it to dry. It takes approximately 5 minutes to dry. It dries on clear, and if you find that you have painted in a place that you don't want it, it comes off easily with acetone. Once it's dry, you can attach your pad. Be careful working with Primer 94 because the attachment of the Marine Mat to the primed area is much more aggressive, and once it's down, it is not going to come up. For the cockpit portion of your install, you'll notice that Jason has pre-scored and separated the paper from the back of the mats along about a 3-inch strip, and has pre-laid out all of the pads inside the cockpit area for proper teak line orientation. This gives him a chance to make sure everything lines up before anything is adhered to the boat. Also, areas that have required primer to be installed have already been primed, and the floor has already been prepped with acetone to clear and clean and remove any of the release agents or greases or oils. Once you complete your pre-layout stage of this installation, then you can begin attaching and adhering each individual pad. Flip up the pad along one edge and remove about 6 or 8 inches of paper backing. Lay the pad back down and press down the adhesive, trying to stroke out air pockets out from underneath the pad. Try not to stretch the pad during this operation. So if you're out in exposed sunlight, note that you can change the length of the pad if you stroke it too much. Focus on forcing the air out as you remove the paper backing. The last step, just to ensure that your gap remains the same. You want about a 1/4 inch gap between pads. All right, well, following these steps exactly as prescribed in this installation procedure are going to help ensure that you have a perfect Marine Mat install. If at any point you have questions at all about this installation procedure, feel free to reach out to us by commenting below. You can also reach us on JetBoatPilot.com. We're always there to answer your questions to help make sure that you get exactly what you need. Another thing that I want to point out, if you're ordering these pads, let's say for install later down the road, and you want to stow them away, a lot of people will stow them flat under a bed, just kind of lay them out flat so they don't have that crease in them. Sometimes when they're shipped, they have a little crease, so you can lay them out, just kind of lay them under your bed. That's a good way to stow them. Observe these after you've used them out in the direct sunlight. You may notice there's an air bubble that kind of pops up. Again, if that does, just pop it with a push pin. That will just lay right back down again. It is best to stow your boat with Marine Mat installed in a shaded area or with a boat cover. So I would recommend highly that you get a boat cover if you do not have one, or stow it in the shade. And if you need to clean it, the best way to clean Marine Mat is with a stiff bristle brush. You can use any kind of boat soap you like. We don't recommend acidic type cleaners, but a stiff bristle brush is really the most important thing. Slather it up with soap, scrub it as aggressively as you'd like to, rinse it down. I can get practically any stain out of Marine Mat. So, all right, well, we're glad you watched this video today. We hope it was helpful. If you have questions, comment below. We'll put the link in the description below for you to buy your Marine Mat from JetBoatPilot. And if you like this video, check this one out.